Welcome to Toastmaster Time, the show that's got everybody talking. I'm Justin Paras, and I'm very excited to be your host for tonight's episode. Just like in a regular Toastmasters meeting, we're going to have prepared speeches and evaluations. The evaluations are designed to be positive, constructive, and overall encouraging so that our speakers feel motivated to continue on the path to being the best communicators they can be. We are very fortunate to have an evaluator from my home club, Citizens for Better Communicators, or CBC Toastmasters in Fremont. Our evaluator is Derek Ho. Derek, share with us what's in store for tonight's episode.
A question comes to mind. Who's evaluating the evaluators? Which is why I'm glad our first speaker, Ron, is going to regale us about the General Evaluator role. Our second speaker is going to give a speech about making decisions with a cool mnemonic called Pack Slack. I don't know what it is, but I already want to know. Back to you, Justin.
Thank you so much for that overview, Derek, and I look forward to hearing more from you later in the show. We're very fortunate to have Ron Fitch from the Alameda Tongue Twisters as our first speaker here today. Ron, thank you so much for coming and welcome back to Toastmaster Time.
Thank you for bringing me back.
Awesome. So remind us, how long have you been in Toastmasters?
I'm coming up on 10 years with the Alameda Tongue Twisters, the best club in the world.
Wow, a decade, that is phenomenal. Congratulations on that accomplishment. So when you look back on your 10 years and you take into consideration there's people at home watching this, what advice would you have for somebody who's new to Toastmasters?
You know, we focus on the speaking part, but, well, it doesn't say it here, but our banners say where leaders are made.
Yep.
Leadership skills is the thing that I didn't know that was going to make a difference. When they thrust me into being club president, I didn't think I could do it. So I used the Joe Walsh method, which is make everybody think that you can do it and they'll fall right along. And now I know I can do it.
That is awesome. Sort of like fake it till you make it, or would you classify it as something else?
Actually, Joe wasn't faking it. He found out that he had inside of him the ability, and he didn't know he had it. I found out I could become president, and everybody would let me run the show. I still can't believe I did that.
Awesome. Now, when you think back on the 10 years, I'm sure there's a lot of highlights. Share with us one of those highlights from your decade-long experience in Toastmasters.
A few years ago, I was area director because that's what it required to become a DTM. The only reason I don't want to be an officer anymore is because when you're a district officer, you don't get to do speech contests. Speech contests is what it's all about for me.
Awesome.
I've made it to the district a couple of times, and for me, that's memorable.
I love it. I've seen you compete, and you do a phenomenal job. All right, you ready to rock out your speech?
You bet.
All right, go ahead and head over to the red carpet while I share more information on Toastmasters with our audience at home. Toastmasters is a worldwide educational program that helps people develop confidence through strong communication and leadership skills. There are over 14,000 clubs with over 270,000 members in 148 countries. For more information, visit toastmasters.org. Ron is going to be delivering a project from the Visionary Communication Pathway. This is a level 3 project, researching and presenting. Ron Fitch, a general evaluator's general evaluation, a general evaluator's general evaluation, Ron Fitch.
Have you ever been a general evaluator for your club? Do you even know what a general evaluator does? Fellow Toastmasters, as you already know, we time everything and we evaluate everything. So it makes sense to have a club role known as the general evaluator. Now, the general evaluator role is unique from all the other meeting roles, and you know, it's kind of a lonely role because you have to pay attention to everything, and yet you're powerless to say or do anything that would influence the outcome of that meeting. Your job as General Evaluator is simply to watch, to pay attention. Now, there's a lot of misconceptions about being a General Evaluator, so I want to share a few corrections for you this evening. First off, the General Evaluator, the presentation that you give is not about you. So leave you out of it. Second off, the General Evaluator should not make any real comments or references to the speakers, except if they're late to the meeting or they do something stupid. You got to call them out on that. But other than that, it is the evaluator's job to evaluate the speakers. As a General Evaluator, I don't evaluate the speakers, I evaluate the evaluators. Now, as Justin said earlier, the evaluator's job is to use what we call the sandwich method. They open with some positive comments, and then they offer constructive criticism or changes. I'd like you to challenge you to do this, and so on. And then they top it with another complimentary piece. Let me show you two ways not to do it. One night in my club, I gave a speech. I don't even remember what it was all about. My evaluator came up. He looked mean and nasty. He said a couple of negative things, and then he said, "I don't have anything good to say about your speech, so I'm just going to sit down." And it felt like he slugged me in the gut. Everybody around the room, their jaws dropped. They couldn't believe it. Within 2 weeks later, he quit the club, joined another club, and a month later from that, he quit that club, and I don't know where he is today. The other kind of evaluation that doesn't work is what I call a fan mail evaluation. As an area director, I gave a speech to one of my clubs, and my evaluator, she gushed the entire evaluation. "Oh, it was the greatest speech I ever heard. You've changed my life, you blah, blah, blah." And I didn't learn a single thing about what I could have done better. So the evaluator's job is to help us learn and grow. Now, in my club, the General Evaluator calls on the functionary reports, the report and the grammarian. In other clubs, the Toastmaster calls for that. The reason I like having the GE call for the grammarian report is so that I can slip in the word of the day before he reads how many people use the word of the day. Once those reports are made, then the General Evaluator gives their general evaluation. Now, evaluations for speeches are 2 to 3 minutes. Turns out the GE does not have a time limit, and that could be deadly. So in my opinion, the GE's overall evaluation should be 2 to 3 minutes. And in that evaluation, you make note of, did the meeting start on time? Was everybody prepared? Did people drop out at the last minute and not take care of it, so the poor Toastmaster was stuck getting the roles? The GE's job is to talk about, did the meeting flow properly? And what ways can we do better to make the meeting go better, even better next time? And with that, the general evaluator is done. They turn it over to the Toastmaster, and they're done for the night. I've heard recent general evaluations where we hear about the history of the person's life, the general evaluator. "We don't care anything about you. You're like a parrot. You're just giving us data. The general evaluation role is, I think, the most demanding role. Done right, your club can grow better. Done wrong, your club will continue to make mistakes and nobody will know it. So in Toastmasters, our goal is to improve week after week after week. And therefore, I encourage you to take a shot next week in your club at being a general evaluator. You will be amazed at the difference it can make.
Thank you so much for that speech, Ron. The general evaluator role is such an important one, and I don't think I've ever heard anybody give a speech on that role. So thank you so much for sharing those valuable tips and your wisdom with us here tonight. Derek, given you're our evaluator, we'd love to get your thoughts on Ron's speech.
Ron just took us through General Evaluator Boot Camp. It was packed with a lot of great suggestions. I definitely like how he redescribed what the general evaluator is and what it isn't. Having this distinction helps prevent any misconceptions about the roles, because I know every club does it a little bit differently. It's great that he focused in on what he believes the general evaluator is. However, he had a lot of very fast movements in his hand gestures. I think it's a little bit better to slow down the hand gestures to make them a little bit more purposeful, to give each of them meaning, because I believe you need to direct your audience with your hand gestures. I loved how he gave specific personal stories about good evaluators and bad evaluators to help us realize what is a good evaluation. Now that I've learned so much about the general evaluator role, I want to try it out when I get to my Toastmasters club. Back to you, Justin.
Thank you so much for that evaluation, Derek. I loved how you used the sandwich technique, which Ron actually talked about in his speech. All right, folks, we're going to take a short break for a public service announcement, and then when we come back, we will have our second speaker deliver his speech.
Name an effective political leader in history who couldn't speak well.
Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall.
There aren't any.
Because when it comes to a disease,
Freedom requires leadership, and leadership requires oratory. You have to speak to be heard.
I have a dream.
It's all about personal growth and guts.
Never give in. Never, never, never.
Welcome back to the show. Before I introduce our second speaker, I just want to tell you a little bit about the educational program in Toastmasters. It's called Pathways. Whether you're looking to do better at job interviews or your work presentations or simply be more articulate in social situations, there's a pathway for you. There's 11 pathways, some of which include presentation mastery, persuasive influence, strategic relationships, and engaging humor. For more information on the pathways, be sure to check out toastmasters.org. We're very fortunate to have our second speaker here today, who is somebody I saw speak when I first joined Toastmasters about 13 years ago. I was blown away and wanted to be like him. We have Dennis Dawson from Laugh Lovers here today joining us. Dennis, welcome back to Toastmaster Time.
Justin, you are nothing like me. You are damned handsome.
You are too kind. You're too kind. Well, thanks for coming on the show. I know you've been here before.
I have.
How long have you been in Toastmasters?
17 years, just a little longer than you.
17 years, awesome. And I'm sure you've learned a lot through your experience in Toastmasters. What's one thing that you think our viewers at home should know when it comes to becoming a better communicator?
Well, Justin, I am coming up on my 3rd Distinguished Toastmaster Award. A Distinguished Toastmaster just means I've been through the program and I've been a district officer, in effect. Now, some people think that you do a bunch of stuff and you are then granted a Distinguished Toastmaster Award, and that's how you become a Distinguished Toastmaster. But no, what you do is distinguish yourself in everything you do as a Toastmaster, and then you gain the recognition. So everybody today in Toastmasters can distinguish themselves, and that's how you become a Distinguished Toastmaster.
I've never heard that, but I love it. Very profound. Thank you for sharing that with us. Now, in your 17 years, I know you've won many awards, you've done a lot of speeches. What is one highlight that you think about when you think back on your 17 years?
And I'm not just saying this to pick on the previous speaker.
Okay.
At one point, I had participated in a contest, and I won, but I'd had real difficulty finding the contest and getting signed up. And I asked, what does it take to be an area director? How could I do that? And it was explained to me. And so I had to decide, do I want to give speeches and be in contests, or do I want to be an area director? And it was Tevis Thompson, the late, great international director, who said to me, if you give a great speech, you've entertained 300 people for 7 minutes. But as an area director, you have a chance to change people's lives.
Wow.
And that made up my mind at that point. And so I went the leadership route. And after I finished the leadership track, I was able to compete and win some of those awards that you so blithely threw in there.
Very cool. That's a great wisdom and insight for people who are considering taking on an officer role, but who also enjoy competing. So thank you for sharing that with us. All right, you ready to rock out your speech?
I am.
All right, head over to the nice circular red carpet we have there while I share more information with our viewers at home on Toastmasters. The best way to learn about Toastmasters is to actually check out a club. There are so many clubs out there. There's probably 5 within 5 miles of where you live. What you'll find is that each club has, and each meeting actually, has the 3 same parts. In the first part, members deliver prepared speeches, which they've been working on using one of the many Toastmaster pathways, which I referenced earlier. In the second part, we work on table topics, which is designed to help you with your impromptu and on-the-fly speaking skills. And in the third part, we work on giving feedback. Speakers get feedback from evaluators, and anybody who attended gets feedback on their use of time, their use of the English language, their use of filler words, etc. So for more information on where you can find a club near you, check out toastmasters.org. Dennis is going to be delivering a project from the Persuasive Influence Pathway. This is a level 1 project, writing a speech with purpose. Dennis Dawson, Pack Slack, the principles of wise decision making. Pack Slack, the principles of wise decision making. Dennis Dawson.
I think we can all relate to this situation. We're in a meeting. It could be on the job, at your kid's school, or at church, and somebody has an idea, a proposal. They bring it up and everybody says, that sounds good. But to you, something sounds a little bit off, a little fishy, and it's really hard to pin down exactly what's wrong with it. People continue talking, and before you know it, they've taken a vote, they've made a decision, and you're still scratching your head. But then later on, you experience what the French call l'esprit de l'escalier, the inspiration on the stairs, and you realize exactly what was wrong with that idea. In English, we have a phrase, it's, oh, darn, I ought to say that. Now, fortunately, I learned a mnemonic in college, which was, 40 years ago, that has served me well ever since. A little thing called Pack Slack. PACSLAC. Practical, accurate, consistent, solution or service, legal, alternatives, consequences. If you run an idea through that little sieve, you're going to find out exactly what's going to jump out at you as something that's a little bit wrong or something that needs more discussion. So it's easier to illustrate this if we take a practical example. Let's say that you are on the California State Senate, and yet somebody stands up, says, darn it, we're going to finish that BART project. We're going to run the train all the way around the bay, down to San Jose, back to San Francisco, up to Richmond, an unbroken rail. And the whole Congress goes, hooray, what a great idea. And it is a wonderful idea. Trust me, I ride BART. I'm all in. But I'm going to run that through PACSLAC. Now, the first question is it practical? Do we have the time, money, and resources to actually accomplish this? Ding, 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 yes, we do. If California decided to take its huge budget and put it all into doing BART, we could get it done. So practicality is not the problem. Accuracy. Is our information accurate? That's my first red flag, because rail projects are notorious for going over time and over budget, and that includes all of the extensions we've already made to BART. So no matter what they tell us about the cost and time, we can anticipate it will probably be at least twice, 3 times, could be 10 times as much. So I'm going to put a red flag on accuracy. Consistency. Is this going to be something we want to continue into the future? Is it something that we have done in the past? Well, if we're going to be consistent, we would finish the project all the way around the bay, because that's what we agreed to when we first built BART. So it is consistent with our policies. Does it offer a solution or a service? Well, it certainly would for anybody who rides BART, and it, in theory, is going to reduce the amount of traffic on the roads. So as a solution or service, it passes. Is it legal? We're the legislature. If we make a law, it's legal. That one's easy. The next A is alternatives. Are there any alternatives to extending BART? Oh, heck yeah. There are so many alternatives. We could have more ferries. We could have wider freeways. We could have more buses. We could have helicopters taking people from San Jose up to San Francisco. There are all kinds of alternatives, and we really need to consider a lot of them before we start investing money in finishing BART. And finally, consequences. What are the consequences of completing the BART system? And what are the consequences if we don't? And this is something to think through, because as the system is today, it's functioning, it's working. Maybe it's not perfect, but we don't necessarily have to go in and boil the ocean to make that project finished. On the other hand, if we don't do something about the clogged freeways and the problems people have with the commutes, we're going to have to figure something else out besides finishing BART. So using that filter, I was able to come up with a couple of items, in particular the fact that we need really accurate information before we make this decision. And we have to consider a lot of alternatives before we decide this is the best. So if you take any decision and run it through the PACSLAC filter, is the idea practical? Do you have the time, money, and resources to do it? Is your information accurate? Have you got all the facts you need? Is it consistent with what we've done in the past or what we want to do in the future? Is it legal? Does it provide a solution or a service? Have we thought through the alternatives to this idea? And what are the consequences of doing it and the consequences of not doing it? If you can pass through those 7 tests, you've probably got a pretty good idea going. And the next time somebody comes up with a crazy idea, you can just say, hey, cut me some PACSLAC, Jack. Justin.
Wow. Thank you so much for that speech, Dennis. We live in a world of acronyms, and I thought I had heard all the acronyms, but today Dennis shared a new one with us in PackSlack. And I think if more people were aware of PackSlack, our world would be a better place because people would make wiser decisions. So Dennis, thank you for enlightening us with that great speech. All right, Derek, we'd love to hear your thoughts on Dennis's speech today.
Do you struggle with making decisions? Well, I'm really glad that Dennis went over the PackSlack mnemonic because I think it can really help people make a wise decision. His speech is very structured, which makes things very easy to follow. However, the PackSlack mnemonic seems to be focused on big, world-changing, life-changing decisions. And I kept thinking, could this be used for something smaller, like what are we going to eat? I didn't really get that sense, but I understand that PackSlack can be used to decide on whether the bar should be created or not. Big changes like that, which may have been its intended purpose. I really enjoyed how he gave a real-life example describing how to use the PackSlack mnemonic when trying to think of making the BART into a reality, just step by step. That way we can imagine using the PackSlack idea mnemonic ourselves. Now that I know it, now that you know it, you can make better decisions. Back to you, Justin.
All right, Derek, thank you so much for that evaluation. Come on over to the table. We've got a little bit of time left here.
Hey, Justin.
Hey, great job.
How you doing?
Thanks for coming on to the show. As we both know, there's a lot of different roles in Toastmasters.
Yeah.
There's the Toastmaster, there's the grammarian, the yaw counter, the timer, the general evaluator, and the speech evaluator. So what do you enjoy most about evaluating speeches?
My favorite part of Toastmasters is the impromptu. And someone told me that evaluator is not just feedback, it's an impromptu speech. And I really like that impromptu section because it becomes so much more practical. You can actually tell people what to do that will help them in the moment. After you heard it, you can say something. I think it's really practical. You can even use that same skill in everyday conversation.
Awesome. All right, thank you for that. I wish we had more time to chat, but we got to wrap up the show. That's all the time we've got for tonight. Thank you so much for watching. Toastmaster Time is filmed in the San Francisco Bay Area. For more information, please visit us at toastmastertime.com. Toastmaster Time is sponsored by District 57 Toastmasters. For more information on District 57, you can visit d57tm.org. And for general information on Toastmasters, including the pathways and where you can find a club near you, please visit toastmasters.org. I want to thank our wonderful staff and volunteers here at the Palo Alto Media Center and express my gratitude to Derek Ho, our evaluator, and our two prepared speakers, Ron Fitch and Dennis Dawson, for visiting us here and delivering their phenomenal speeches. From all of us at Toastmaster Time, I want to encourage you to join Toastmasters and to keep on talking.